Most teams and reps are handed Sales Navigator, but never shown how to actually use it to build pipeline. And then you wonder why your reps aren't hitting quota. Look, I get it. Sales Navigator seems really simple on the surface, but there's a massive difference between knowing how to use a tool and knowing how to use it to consistently generate pipeline. In this video, I'm going to show you my exact workflow, the same system I've used to generate millions of pipeline using Sales Navigator, Apollo, and ChatGPT. And this is in theory. This is the actual step-by-step process I use every single week along with my team. By the end of this tutorial, you'll know exactly how to set up trigger-based searches that find prospects at the exact perfect buying moment, how to integrate Sales Navigator with Apollo for seamless prospecting, how to build a 21-day sequence that actually converts, and how to generate endless qualified prospects every single week. This is the workflow most teams and reps wish they knew when they started. If you don't know who I am, hey, I'm Marcus Chan, former #1 sales director at Cintas Corporation, where I led a 110-person sales org to profitably deliver 190 million TCV each year, and now I'm a sales trainer and coach of the fastest growing companies and reps in the world. Let's go ahead and dive right in. So there are going to be 5 total steps in this entire process, and it'll be very simple. Now, first, we have 2 foundational steps we have to set up before we start using Sales Navigator. So step number 1 is we want to build our sequence out. I use Apollo personally. You don't have to use Apollo. You can basically use any outreach tool that you may want to use, whether it's outreach or anything else like that, like Instantly, whatever. Really, the outreach tool is designed to help keep you organized, so you can create a multi-channel or omni-channel approach across the board. So you stay organized on knowing exactly when you need to reach out to the prospect, in what way, whether it's a call, an email, a text, LinkedIn, on their content, etc. So step number 1 is you want to build out your sequence first. For some people, it's easier first to write the whole sequence out, maybe on a Google Doc, and then go and build in Apollo. That's what I do personally. I write it all out completely, and then I go and I build out in Apollo. So here's mine as an example. We use a 21-day sequence, right? It's multi-channel, so it hits multiple different channels across the board, but we have it all structured inside here, so we can just load prospects inside here, and it's completely dialed for us. So it's very simple. That's step number 1. Foundationally, you want to get that built first. And since you can use basically any outreach tool that you want, I'm not going to walk through how to set up an Apollo because every platform is a little bit different. My point is more so is ideally you have an outreach tool to keep really organized, to manage your entire workflow so you can make sure you're hitting all the key points. All right, step number 2. Once you have the core foundation, have the sequence written out and built out in some sort of sequencing tool, the next step, what you want to do is we want to start building some saved searches inside of Sales Navigator. I'm going to go ahead and make my head a little smaller so you can see more on the screen. So the first thing you want to do is you want to go ahead and you want to go to lead filters right here. And you want to actually create a search and filters that actually matter to you. So I'm going to pull this up really quick, as you can see here. Let me move my head just out of the way so you can see a bigger screen to see. And you want to identify what are the key filters for you. So for instance here, some key ones that might be useful for you, the company headcount. So this tells you really how many total employees are inside there. So you want to choose what's going to make sense for who you go after, okay? It is really important you're really clear on your ideal customer profile. So you want to build out, of course, the company headcount to the exact job titles you're going after, right? Now, a couple other things that's very useful as well that I find personally be great is also years in the current company. For instance, if I choose less than 1 year, this is a really nice filter right here because this means if they've only been in the company for less than 1 year, chances are pretty good that they might be looking to make some changes in their company for whatever you might be selling. For my situation, because we offer a diagnostic and sales training and professional services, if I know they've been coming for, let's call it 6 months, that means they had a chance kind of get a lay of the land, see the challenges, and they may be more open to a solution to actually solving those challenges. So for instance, I can look here on the right side, and I just clicked on just this. And this is obviously too big of a list to work because it's 26 million right here. But find people that are 11 months into a role is a great one because they're deeper into the company and they have more of a lay of the land. Now, someone's 2 months in, and 2 months in the company, that's a pretty short amount of time to really determine if you need to make changes yet. And they might still be overwhelmed trying to figure out what the biggest priorities are. Then you can go through and you can also choose other filters that might be relevant for you specifically, depending on what you sell, whether it's geography, industry, etc. This helps you get a really filtered list, all right? These are also great ones for buying tech as well. For instance, if they follow your company, this is a great trigger because if they're following your company, that's interesting. Why are they following your company, right? Are they interested in your services? So that's a potential good buying trigger right there. They're viewing your profile, another example as well. Another really great one too is connection here, which is best path in. So the first degree connection, second degree, so you kind of see where they're at, but also more importantly, connections up. So if they're connected to certain people that you might know, they can help tee you in as an easy referral. So a couple different examples right here. Now, one of the other ones that some people like to choose is change jobs. This I have found personally can be a little hit or miss. Sometimes I change jobs and it's like completely wrong for some reason, right? So I found a better trigger here is less than 1 year in the company as a better one. Now, what I do also really like as well is posted on LinkedIn. This is also a really nice trigger or really nice filter to add on here because this shows they're a little more active on LinkedIn, which gives you another channel to reach them on, whether it's on their content, in the DMs. So it's just another great way to also engage your prospects. And then, of course, there are some other things you may want to choose as well to keep your lead list pretty clean. Now, I'm going to go and actually show you how I have mine set up. So hopefully it'll give you some inspiration. It's not the only way to do it, but I just want to give you an example of how I do it so you can see a really simple, easy use case. So I'm going to go over here to save searches I have right here. And I'm just going to choose an example of one right here. I'm going to choose these prospects right here. I like to have very specific searches to make it more niche down and targeted, which means I'll actually have less leads in each one, but they're more targeted. For instance here, if I go to, these are my prospects first degree execs, I'm going to hit view on here. And I'm going to open this up so you can see it's okay. So you can kind of see the searches I have here. So this is what I do here. So on this one, you can see here, I have company headcount chosen for basically 501 up to 10,000. And then I have specific titles that we go after, which is the sales VPs, et cetera, right? So these are higher level. And this one is specifically, this is first degree execs. I don't have the filter using current position. So it's very specific to what we're searching for here. And I don't have that one flagged right here. Now, what I do have is first degree connections. So these are people that are first degree connections to me, and they fall in these parameters, and they also posted on LinkedIn. So you can see here's a couple different examples right here. And then I'm going to show the 2 new results. And these are the 2 newest results right here. All right, so this is an example of a search. And I'll show you how I add to lead list in a second, how to find more buying triggers. But this is an example how I start building the list. Let me show you another example to hopefully hammer home the point of how you can create your own list as well. So let me go back to save searches right here. And I'm going to choose, let's do second degree. Let's take a look. We might have already cleared this list already. So second and third degree execs with less than 1 year experience. Okay, so we have 11 total results here. I'm going to click on this to open this up a little bit. So you can see how this one's a little bit different here. We still have a very similar headcount, similar titles. Here, though, intentionally less than 1 year. You can see the industries we're going after right here. And then I'm choosing second and third degree connections. So these people are not connected with. And I'm also choosing to post it on LinkedIn. And we have a number of different lead lists, a little more advanced tutorial here. But we have different lead lists we built in the past. So I want to make sure that they're not in any past lead lists. But this is also a really cool feature here is people you interact with. I want this list to show people that have not viewed my profile and we have not messaged. So this way, they're ideally fresher prospects, for lack of a better term. So you can see we have 11 different results right here. And you can see based on the filters here, 10 months in a row, 10 months in the company. Okay, that's great to look into, right? 8 months in a row, 8 months in the company. 6 months here, 6 months in the company. So these are really great for me to be able to say, okay, are these potential prospects who we want to look into? So let me show you another example as well. I'm going to go save searches right here. And here we have second and third degree execs. And I'm just expand this out, same thing. It's loading. Boom. We have 761 results right here, 65 new results. You can kind of see this is also a little more robust one. I don't have using current position. This is a bigger list. It's the very same thing. So ultimately, we have very similar, but they get more and more niche depending on how the list worked, which means they're going to be the hottest to the coldest, if you will. All right. So that is like the second step, which is we're setting up these filters. So then this way, as we view them, the cool part is as we view them and we start to add them to lists, each time we view them or message them, it actually removes them from the list. So this way, when we look here, my team and I can look and say, hey, do we have any new prospect ads to this list right here? So that's why it's really important as a foundational step is you want to go in and you want to build the right filter list for you with the right buying triggers as part of your second foundational step. Because once you do step 1 and step 2, that's like almost like a one-time thing unless you want to update new searches or you want to update your sequence. That makes it very easy to build off it moving forward. All right, step number 3, we actually want to do a little bit deeper research. We want to look for signals and triggers before we do our outreach. At the end of the day, when you do outreach based off signals and triggers, they might be a better potential prospect for you, and there's buying signs potentially as part of it, right? These are easier ways in, so your messaging will resonate far more. So let me show you exactly what I mean here. So I have one of my searches here. This is just my first degree connections here. And these are, and it doesn't really matter whichever list it is. I just want to show you as an example and how I personally do it, right? And you also want to find your way of doing it, right? So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go and click on, I'm just going to make this a little smaller. I'm going to collapse this. And I'm going to look at Andy Jones right here. He's a sales lead. Looks like over a dark trace, right? So number 1, I'm going to verify, are they still a dark trace? Because every now and then, sometimes it's just inaccurate. That's what happens, right? It's not up to date, and they have some other weird stuff in here as well. That definitely happens for sure. I'm making sure it's actually accurate. Now, the second thing I'm gonna start doing is I want to look more into dark trace here. Now, actually, I know about dark trace, but let's see if I didn't know about dark trace. I'm gonna go in here. I'm looking for some buying signs potential here. So I'm gonna go like this. I'm just gonna open up dark trace right here, and there's a new tab with the company page. And I want to look for some buying signs. Now, your buying signs might be a little bit different. There's a couple things I'm looking for to be specific. So number one, because we primarily work with a little bit larger organizations that have at least 25 AEs and more, I want to verify, hey, do they have at least 25 AEs? And because I built out some personas in the past, I can see here, boom, they have 162 AEs according to Sales Nav. Okay, great. So they're obviously well within that parameter. Now, again, that's not a buying trigger, but I'm just pre-qualifying them to make sure it actually even makes sense for my outreach. So this is super key here. You want to make sure when you're doing the outreach, you don't want to have millions of prospects. You want to have the right prospects with the right messaging. Okay, cool. We know that's totally good. I'm actually going to go to Growth Insights right here. And there's different things that might be useful for you to look at. So for me personally, and you can look at each one, and each person it's a little bit different. So for me, I like to look at job openings, okay? And the reason I like job openings is, for instance, like for sales, if I know in the last 3 months, they've had a 35% increase in sales job openings, why is that? So why would a company have sales job openings? Either number one, people aren't performing. So if they're not performing, they probably have open recs to maybe fill those positions. So that's probably potentially a hypothesis, a point of view, right? Or number two, maybe they're growing, creating new territory. So again, which means they have new people that need to be ramped up, need to be trained, need to be developed, and there might be gaps in how they're currently doing things. So that's a really good buying sign for me to take a look at. And you can kind of do the same thing as well. Let's say, for example, you sell CTOs and their engineering department grew by 62%. That's really interesting in the last 3 months. Why is that? Okay. Are they building out a new product? Are they expanding? Did they raise capital? There's a million different possible reasons it could be, right? But you want to have a hypothesis based off this. So for me personally, I'm like, okay, this is a great sign right here. All right. Now, again, that's one potential buying sign right there, or one trigger right there. I also do some of my own research. Now, I use ChatGPT to do some more research. Now, you can use any tool, by the way. You can Google search. You can manually look at earnings transcripts. It doesn't really matter. You want to have a way to actually research it. So what I've done, just to save myself some time, is I use ChatGPT, and I also have created a prompt for me that fits me and for what I'm looking for and buying triggers. So what I can do very quickly, because this is part of what we do every week, I can just type in dark trace, right? I'll say, now search dark trace. I'm going to let the prompt do its magic. Now, of course, you can write your own prompt to identify what the core strategic priorities are, potential buying signs as well. So you can see it's making its run right here. But I'll show you exactly what it pulls from me, and it'll give you some examples of maybe how you want to craft your prompt to figure out what's most important for you. But what's really important is I'm not looking for signals within the department. And I already have an idea here even from Sales Navigator. 35% increase in sales job opening is very useful. I like to know from the very highest executive level, strategically, what is most important here. So you can see here, because of the prompt I've created here, it walks through what are the strategic initiatives market focus. So it's talking about what's leading with this agentic AI, what's preparing for. I didn't realize they're acquired by Thoma Bravo in 2024, right? Their strategic acquisition. Now, here's what's really interesting. Because of how I've created this prompt, it pulls data from RepView, which pulls in quota attainment. Now, for me, that's a very useful stat to know, because now I know, oh, this is interesting. Only 23.6% of reps are hitting their number. That's very concerning, obviously. And there's some more stats right here. So you can see this is very useful. It gives me some recommendations here, right? So this is like really interesting stuff that I can then utilize as part of my outreach. So here, if you think about from a buying signal perspective, I've now uncovered, it's interesting. They're growing their sales job openings, which means people either underperforming or they have growth in their territory, or maybe they have turnovers, which is also a possibility as well. And then also on top of that, interesting, a lot of reps aren't hitting their number, and they also have some major strategic focuses as well. So these are a couple different interesting nuggets, which helps me create a point of view for my actual outreach. So you can see how powerful this can be when you're combining Sales Navigator, then with research tools like ChatGPT or Perplexity or Claude or Google, whatever you want to research, right? And then you combine these point of views together. This allows you to do the outreach directly to them. That's far more pointed. So now the next step then is actually add Andy Jones here into a part of the sequence, right? So for instance, here, I'm just gonna go here. Now, because I use Apollo, you might use something else, right? So Apollo has a really neat Chrome extension. I can add them very easily to the actual sequence very easily. Now, whatever tool you use, you may or may not have this, so you might have to go and just manually add it in. But either way though, we now know, hey, you know what, this person is potentially a prospect for us that we can do outreach to. So let me show you how I do it to make it very easy. So the first step is I'm just going to go ahead, I'm going to open him up and view his profile just like this, as a new tab. And then as this pulls up, I'm just going to go ahead and add him in just like this. And I'm going to add to a sequence. And this is the one I use. And I'm just going to add now. Very simple, right? So boom, this is a very easy way for me to do it. Again, you can use any tool that you want. And by the way, this video is not endorsed by any of the vendors I mentioned here. This is just stuff we just use because we're practitioners of what we actually say. Let me show you now what I do next, because what I don't want to do, I already did some of the homework already to make sure this is actually someone within the right market. So let me show you now what I do in the back end to make sure I add some of this research into where I'm doing my outreach. The cool part is, it automatically creates a task for me to work on now. Inside here, it already has a task, but I'm just gonna actually go in here. I'm going to add a note really quick. I just like to call it trigger notes. And again, you can do this in your own outreach tool. Shoot, frankly, if you have it all managed in a Google Sheet, you just need it somewhere, right? You just need a way to manage your whole outreach sequence and have a place to kind of keep your notes so you don't have to double up the work again. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to hit trigger notes. I'm just adding here a couple key notes. We realize that, here's a tab, 35% sales job opening growth. So a little bullet point, 35% sales job opening growth. Boom. And then I'm going to go to where I have my research notes. And I'm just going to go ahead. I'm just going to copy all this. Just like this. And I don't need a summary. This is what I like. I'm just going to drop it below. Boom. And now I have all these notes. I'm going to hit save note just like this. Boom. And that's what I do. Okay. And then next, what I do is I don't start working on Andy Jones because I like to batch my tasks personally. Then I go down next in the list. So let's do another example. I'm going to look at Kyra Kirsch. So we'll take a look at Kyra. Yep, she's still there. Now notice here, this is a list where they've been in the company a lot longer, right? So I make sure when I'm messaging, I can't message her and say, hey, it looks like you're relatively new to the company. You probably uncover these issues. The messaging is a little bit different here when I do my outreach to them, all right? So let me go ahead and let's do my exact process first. Number one, I'm going to open up the company. Let's just take a look. Let's double check. They have 30 AEs. Great. So that's well within it. I'm just going to take a look at growth insights, just like this. I'm going to go to job openings for me personally. Sales up 250%. Interesting. I like that. I like that a lot. It's great. I'm going to butcher the name of this company. So I'm going to copy this. And I'm going to go here. I'm just going to search Certinia. Let's take a look and see what we find here. Okay, boom, just like that. So it walks through some key strategic initiatives, which is very interesting. The quota attainment is 32%, right? This is the culture rating. So this is like very interesting again. I don't need to memorize this. I'm just going to go ahead. I'm just going to copy all this, just like this. Hit copy, okay? Just have it saved. I'm already here. And then I'm going to go back into here. I'm just going to open up Kyra as a new tab, just like this. We're going to go ahead and add Kyra. We're going to add her to sequence, just like this. Boom. And now I'm going to go to Apollo and find her task. Found the task that's already set for today for me to do. You see July 9th. I'm going to add the trigger notes just like this. Trigger notes, boom. And I think it was 250% is what we saw. 250%. 250%. Sales, job, opening growth. And then I put all the rest of my trigger notes. Now, again, for you, you might have some different triggers that are relevant for you. For instance, maybe it's a different type of role. It has a job opening increase like, IT or something like that, or marketing, whatever, right? And also, what you're searching for as other potential triggers as the company initiatives might also be different as well. So obviously, I'm looking for overall key things going to help drive them. For instance, if I've seen that they've been missing their earnings for the last 3 quarters in a row, and there's a lot of concern there, or if I see something in earnings transcript based off my AI search that maybe they're struggling to go up market, those are, again, buying signs for me. You may have different buying signs that you're going to be looking for. So that's why it's really important that you have your way of doing research, whether you're using AI, you're manually doing it, you're using Google or some other way to do a deeper research to understand the core strategic priorities and how it can actually impact the overall business. So I'm going to go ahead and hit save note just like this. And boom, now this one is good to go. So you can see there, that one went much faster right there. And the cool part is once I hit refresh just like this, these should disappear. Boom, now they're completely gone, as you can see here, because now I know this list has been worked, right? And it's because I have viewed profile or message here, so I know it's clear, and now I can jump to my next list. So you see here, what I'm actually doing from a process perspective is I'm actually batching all my list building, if you will, all at once, right? So let's recap. So first, foundationally, I set up my overall sequence. Then number two, I set up my save searches. Those are pretty much one-time things. And then I have specific times set in the week where we're going to go and we're going to add these prospects to our sequences. But we're making sure before we just blindly add them to sequence, we're doing a little bit of research in advance so we know what are the bind sides and triggers that we can utilize as part of our messaging. So for instance, if I know they've been with the company for 6 months and I uncover that they're missing the number and they have explosive job opening growth, my messaging can be very much tied around that where, hey name, congrats on your new role over at, so it looks like you've been there for 6 months now. If you're like most sales VPs, you're probably uncovering there's a lot of dead bodies hidden around. And based off my research, it looks like the team is hitting probably around 32% compared to the industry average of 42% for software. You can see that's pretty compelling. And then if I could bridge it into their overall initiatives, and according to your CEO, Bob Smith, who said the number one target is growing by double digits this year, I got to imagine there's a lot of pressure turning the team around to actually perform at a high level. So again, I just riffed that real quick and massaged it a little more, but you get my point. That becomes really powerful because I'm able to interlay my early messaging to that prospect, a lot of key bind signals to create that point of view of what I assume to be the case in their situation. So now let's talk about step 4, which is actually doing the outreach. So here's a really cool part. If you follow steps 1, 2, and 3, that means you built the searches and you've also now have found, identified triggers for your specific prospects. You've taken the most qualified ones and you add them to your outreach sequence. Just to clarify, if we found prospects as part of the sales nav search and research that didn't fall within the parameters, like for instance, in my situation, maybe they actually don't have a big enough organization, or maybe there aren't any buying triggers, I'm just actually not going to add them to the sequence. That's really, really important, right? I only just 2 examples right here, but I'll tell you probably over half the time, they actually don't fit the parameters and we just view them and we just don't add them and we move on. And then once we refresh that page, they're completely gone from the list. I don't have to worry about them after that. So one quick bonus before we step into number 4 is I highly recommend you have set times in your calendar, maybe it's an hour block or 2-hour block, where every single week you are literally going to Sales Navigator, you're checking your save searches just like I showed you, you're taking a look for what are the new ones or the new results that you want to go and add on, and you add them to your list every single week. If you do this consistently every single week, that means every week, and you're doing that research, you're going to be adding qualified prospects with buying signs to your list every single week. So this means you'll have an endless amount of leads that are ongoing at all times. Now, you can't just keep adding them to an outreach list and then not do your outreach. That's what step number 4 is all about. So then you also want to have a set time every single week where you are going and you're doing your outbound tasks. Now, I highly recommend you have set times on your calendar where you're consistently then doing the outreach. So these are prospecting blocks where you're literally executing on the leads you've added to the list to actually work. That's from making your calls, you're doing your outreach, you're sending emails, you're sending video messages, you're engaging on their content, but you're doing it consistently every single week. So if you run a team of full cycle AEs or AEs who also do outbound or SDRs, you want to have set times in your calendar. So for instance, when I was an AE, I had 8 hours on my calendar set minimum every week purely for cold outbound. And especially when I was newer into a territory, the number of hours actually went up because obviously I'm not meeting with the prospects quite yet. So I need more time to focus on that. So whether you have larger blocks built together or you have, let's call it 2 hours, 3 hours per day, the key is consistency and having it in the calendar so your team is consistently executing the execution of the list to generate pipeline every single week. So here's how I do it in Apollo. Because I've been consistent in my process and I'm adding to the sequence, now it shows me in all my tasks and my to-dos by date of what I got to do. Now, I was on vacation last week, so I have a bunch of overdue ones here, but literally I can now go through and I can just run through the list step by step, from engaging on content, sending out messages, cold calling, to writing cold emails, etc., step by step through the whole thing. So this is actually why it's really key to have I have some sort of tool to help you manage this because, for instance, here in my outreach tool, once I complete that task, it then moves it to the next step, whether it's 1 day later, two days later, 3 days later, but I can then execute for that day and get it completely done. For instance, if I have 25 tasks to knock out for today, I can go through in my prospecting block, knock them all out, make the calls, send the emails, send the messages, record the videos, engage in the content, knock them all out, and then I don't have to think about it again until my next day. And then I check again for that day. Okay, cool. Here's my new task, and maybe it's 20 tasks now, and I run through that list. So what happens is you start building a machine that generates pipeline. It starts with setting up the outreach machine first, having some sort of tool like Apollo or Outreach or something like that, all written out, ready to go. And then you're also then using Sales Navigator plus researching how you want to do it. You're taking those leads, you're adding to an outreach tool, and then every single day you're running through and you're working the list every single day, you work list. And because you've already qualified them, they're the right size, the right ICP, and there's buying signals and triggers, it increases your chances of likelihood of getting responses, booking more meetings, and ultimately generating the pipeline you actually want to generate. Then there's step 5. This is the ongoing prospecting engine. And I already hit it multiple times, but I just had to make sure this is a step as well, because I think the mistake a lot of people make is they treat using Sales Navigator or some of these tools like a one-time event. The reality is this should be an ongoing thing. So I think the first step is number 1, you want to make sure you have a set time on your calendar that you're checking Sales Navigator results every single week. So for my team and I, we do it every single Monday. So every single Monday, we have fresh new leads have been added to our list because the saved searches is absolutely awesome, right? We go in there and we do the same thing I mentioned, which is we go in, we search them, we double check, we do the research, we make sure that they're qualified, and then we add them into our list. That's the first step. And the second piece is, of course, obviously make sure you're using tools like ChatGPT or Claude or Perplexity or whichever tool is out there to do your research in advance to find the trigger signals. So this allows you to have really relevant and personalized outreach that cuts through the noise. All right. And again, that's part of that same Sales Nav list building block. And then the third piece is you want to have consistent time every single day where you're doing your outreach. If you're running a sales org, as a team, they're working the list. And again, they will only have a list to work on if they're executing on making sure that Sales Nav list is completely dialed. So it all works together as a system. But when you are consistent every single week, you're looking in Sales Nav for your saved searches, you're then doing the proper research, and you're adding the proper qualified leads with the right trigger signals into your outreach tool. And then every single day, you and your team are working that list. If you do that consistently, you will build a ton of pipeline. Here's the bottom line. Sales Navigator is an incredible tool, but only if you know how to use it strategically. And most reps are using it like it's a phone book, just searching for names and hoping for the best. That's not prospecting. That's just busy work. The workflow I just showed you, this is how you turn Sales Navigator into a pipeline generation machine. But here's what I want you to do right now. Don't just watch this video and move on. Actually implement this. If you are a leader, show this video to your team and help your team build this out. Start with just one saved search, okay? Set up your first trigger-based search like literally today and add 10 qualified prospects to your sequence this week because knowledge without execution is literally worthless. Now, if you found this valuable, make sure to hit that subscribe button. I share strategies like this every single week. Real systems that actually work in today's market. Now, remember, your success in sales and leading your team isn't about having more tools. It's about using the right tools the right way. So now go execute. If you want a more in-depth breakdown of Sales Navigator 101 by itself or building really robust searches, check out this next video right here.